here on behalf of Africans Rising to this African Languages Week 2026 webinar under the theme Reviving Our Voices, African Languages as Instruments of Culture, History, and our Empowerment. It is truly a big privilege to convene this space with you. So before we proceed, I would love us to acknowledge who is present in this virtual room. Kindly introduce yourself in the chat box, share your name, the country you're joining us from, and the African language that is closest to your heart. Let us make our linguistic diversity visible even at this very beginning. So we are also deeply grateful to have interpretation services available today to ensure this space reflects the inclusivity that we are advocating for. The interpretation is being generously provided pro bono, and we would like to sincerely thank Mr. Michael Sefande, Njiki Vanessa, sorry. If I murder your name, just excuse me. Miss Grace Ian, Gailin Pokam, Chantal Boni, thank you very much for offering translation services. Your contribution is not just technical support, it is solidarity. It is language justice in action, and we truly, truly appreciate your generosity and your commitment. Participants may select their preferred language channel using the interpretation icon at the bottom of your screen. So today we gather here not just to speak about our language as communication, but also to reflect on language as memory, as identity, as dignity, and as power. So African languages are living archives. We carry cosmologies, philosophies, humor, resistance, ancestral wisdom, and historical marginalization of our language was not accidental. It was part of a broader system of a culture, domination, and of course, erasure. So to revive African languages, therefore, it's not merely cultural preservation, it is also reparative action. So at this point, I would like to invite my colleague, Anne-Rose Nyarnyakach Kadianga, we call her that in our language, to give us some welcoming remarks, to let us know why we are here, contextualize this for us. Please, Anne, uwanja ni wako, zungumza na sisi. Asante.
Thank you so much, Eunice. I honestly feel very humbled to be part of this convening or conversation. Allow me to start by bringing you greetings from the province of Kenya. Hamjambo, bonjour à tous for those who it's morning, bonsoir for those who it's evening. I know for some of us it's evening, kunjani, moriega, all those languages that I've tried to say this evening, for me at least. But my name is Anne Maua, and like Eunice said, I work with her at Africans Rising with an amazing team of, shout out to all the team members that I can see on the call, like Annette, Kimani, Emmanuel, and all of you. And I would like to take this opportunity to officially welcome you. Dr. Babusa, if you could kindly mute the microphone.
It has refused to connect with Bluetooth.
We'll be grateful. Yeah, so this week is very pivotal, honestly, for the work that we are doing at Africans Rising in Reparation, especially because language then forms not just identity, but then cultures, and it's deeply rooted to our ways of life in many ways. And for us, this is a reminder just of not what we lost during colonization, but also part of reclaiming our identities in the small ways that we can. Part of the small ways that we can reclaim our identity personally as Anne is to try and revive our local languages. I really used to hate it when my grandmother would take me to central Kenya when I was in primary school, because it was always against my wish. We would close school and she would say, I want to see all of you in Nyeri. And I really hated it that time because I never understood as a pupil, why I have to go to central Kenya, yet I leave all oceans in Mombasa just to go and be in the mountains and speak with people who I don't understand what they're saying. But today in my age, I am very grateful because I feel like if I never did that, as I was born and raised in Mombasa, I would never speak any of my mother tongues. And I think because and I think because of that, I sort of became a language advocate. So I totally love indigenous languages, and I try to speak even those that I am not part of. And I'm also very grateful to be part of like mixed language community groups. So it gives me all that richness to experiences all these languages in that. But also allow me to say that the African Languages Week then is very, very important. It's a moment of reflection for all of us in terms of how do we reclaim back our stories, um, how do we tell the stories best? Because last year I met a sister from Southern Africa, and she works in the University of Witwatersrand. And she does what she tries to bring justice into language by decolonizing research, by publishing the research in isiXhosa and Zulu and Siswana. And so I was very happy because then Africans are beginning to actually value our languages. A long time ago, we used to be very excited when the index comes, which country speaks the best English, and we are all excited. And Kenyans and Ugandans will be there saying, oh, we speak the best English, but we don't have the best accent. Nigerians will always fight Zimbabweans and all that and whatnot. But Mina, listen, guys, I think for us, the important thing here is how do we honor this? How do we honor what's like our foremothers and our forefathers fought for? How do we make sure that we are raising a generation of conscious young people, including myself, that will still be able, to preserve our richness of not just languages, phrases, and all these things. And with that, I would definitely like to welcome you all once again. If you're joining us for the first time, Africans Rising is a Pan-African movement of movements whose core business is actually to work toward dignity, justice, and peace for people within Africa and people outside of the African continent, provided they are Africans. And so this will be an amazing conversation, I hope, and I can't wait to learn from the wisdoms of the amazing panelists that Eunice and team has put across. And once again, karibuni sana, welcome. And feel free to type in the chat box where you're connecting us from. We definitely love to connect. Feel free to write for us a word in your language. It will be interesting for me to add more languages. Last year, I started learning Zulu and Luganda, and a bit of Nuer. So I am hoping by the end of today, I can have a few more words to run with Eunice. So thank you so much. And I give it back to you. I'll be on the backstage. And Kimani will put the Twitter handles on the chat box. Asante.
Thank you very much, Anne. I actually thought you will throw in some word in the Luo or Kikuyu. But thank you so much for that. I would like to recognize the presence of Kimberly Paul, and I'll tell you why I'm recognizing her presence right now. Kimberly was appointed last year as a member of the African Languages Week Coordinating Committee under the African Academy of Languages. And I would like at this juncture to give her an opportunity to just contextualize this for us before I give the opportunity to Dr. Babusa, who has told me he's on break and he would like to leave soon. But please, Dada Kim, please talk to us about African Languages Week and your role as a member of the coordinating committee.
Absolutely. What a pleasure to be here with you all today. As you know, on our side, it's maybe 9:20 a.m. And so we are on the plantation here in the diaspora, getting ready for work. But this is the real work, us finding time, stealing time, making space for dialogues like this. We sometimes get caught up in the topic, but really the real language is how do we work together? How is it that we make space to prioritize our connection to each other? In the beginning was heart drum. With this vibration, we gave rhythm to the world. On this beat, we sing life, we are the rhythm people. And very often you'll hear me say that my ancestral language was stolen from me. But as I begin to connect more with my brothers and sisters in the diaspora through this African Languages Week 2026, I'm celebrating Garifuna, the language of the Belize and Central American brothers and sisters that were insulated by the water, that were able to refine the migratory path of the rhythmic African languages that found their ways into Central America. I'm connecting more with Palenquero, what they would call Spanish Creole, but we know that language is fluid and it continues to grow and develop. And those speaking in Colombia, I'm connecting with those brothers and sisters this African Languages Week, and it's making me proud. The Creole from Haiti, we know that Haiti, Haiti, however you have learned to pronounce that, the vibration and intention is the same. The first nation in the world to free us from the colonial systems and the imperialistic systems that still oppress us today, that taught us that our mother tongues weren't good enough. Haiti and the Creole that was spirit-based, the language that vibrates from the inside. I'm celebrating that this African Languages Week, and also from my home base. Here in these divided states, yes, we've insulated ourselves and we've always created a safe space. We've always prioritized our Pan-African identity as global Africans. I call it Afro-Carolina, all the way up to where I'm based in Baltimore, Maryland, and beyond. And we speak to this language. It's called Tut. Some people say Tutsi, but this is a language that is a derivative of the African language composite that met us here on the shores. When we came against our will to these shores, we didn't stop being African. We brought African with us. And it's been a beautiful struggle. We have become the composite of all African nations here in the diaspora. You can't find one place in our DNA structure, in our helix, that isn't representative of the African continent. And what a beautiful Creole. We say that that is like gumbo, this soup that you eat here in the divided states, primarily in New Orleans, but it's traveled, that roux at the bottom is like juice that you drink, and it's the best part of the stew. And so on this African Liberation, week, celebrating our languages, acknowledging the African Union's decade of languages, celebrating the fact that now we have African Union decade of reparations, and that this year I have the privilege and honor of representing the diaspora with the African Academy of Languages. That is a gift to show up and serve in this capacity and to organize this week. They said, Kim, your real job is only putting together that 1 week, right? And I said, no, honey, it's so much more than that. Because even though it's an unpaid position that will require me to engage my entire network across global Africa, even though we don't have tech support, and unlike the volunteers that are here with Africans Rising today, we don't have volunteers to translate into African languages like Swahili, etc., our week of activities. But I tell you what, the fact that they are acknowledging the significance of the 6th region in 2003, the Constitutive Act, Article 3Q, acknowledged that Africa didn't have 5 regions, not just North, West, South, East, and Central, but Africa had 6 regions. And I am a part of the 6th region, the largest region, all of those of African descent living outside of the continent. That is the 6th region. And having the opportunity to put our languages, include them as a part of this discussion, is not only paramount, it is healing. This is the reparation we owe ourselves. I know you just asked sis for a brief introduction, Dada. So this is my introduction, and I hope that we'll jump more into the conversation as I put on my lashes and take my hair down and get ready for work.
Thank you very much, Dada Kim. It's always interesting listening to you speaking passionately about Africa, passionately about Africans, and of course, passionately about reparations. Karibu sana, you'll have another opportunity to talk to us. At this juncture, I would like to introduce one of our speakers, Dr. Hamisi Babusa. Dr. Hamisi Babusa is currently attending the African Languages Conference in Accra, and he told me he's on break. So he would like to talk to us before he goes back to the conference. But let me introduce Dr. Babusa. I knew Dr. Babusa more than 20 years ago. So I've known him for a while as an advocate of African languages, specifically Kiswahili. Dr. Babusa works at the Department of Education and Technology in Kenyatta University in Kenya. He is a lecturer of Kiswahili education. He is an accomplished writer of both educational and fiction work. He is an artist. That's how I knew him first. He can sing for us before he leaves. But he's also the founder and CEO of Babusa TV. And this is a space where he is teaching children numeracy, language, but using African languages. He'll tell us how to follow him, how to support his work. But I would like him to talk to us about African languages as tools of liberation, as memory, and of course, as history. Karibu sana, Dr. Babusa. Daktari.
Yanis, you're on mute.
I'm just wondering if he's on the call because I can't, he's not responding.
Maurice, you need to put him as a panel so that he's able to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Daktari, muda ni wako, tafadhali zungumza na sisi. Unmute. I think he used the participants link. Can you upgrade him?
We did that. I think he logged in, he logged out and logged in again. So I just moved him back. Okay. So,
Hello, you can hear me now?
We can hear you, but I mean the light.
Sorry?
Your light behind. Can you just
Tunakusikia lakini hatukuoni.
Oh, the light behind. Now? Okay. Well, thank you very much for the invitation. Eunice, thank you very much for this invitation. So we are on a break. So I've requested to speak. So I'll move very, very fast before my colleagues come back because I'm in the room where we are holding a meeting. So my title today, I wanted to talk about the importance of African languages in STEM, invention, education, writing, and industrial development. You know, when we think about African languages, we just think that we have this attitude of thinking that, oh, they are just languages, like they look primitive, they sound primitive. You know, that's what the colonialists made us believe. But and use African languages as weapons of development. So let me start with the lecture. So we'll talk about science, technology, engineering, STEM in short, industrialization, innovation, So when we usually talk about these ideas, we don't mention African languages because whatever we know it in English or other languages like French and all, but we have never have content. For example, we will say that we are enabled to teach in universities or schools about engineering concepts, about maths in African languages. But remember this, one, who is supposed to understand knowledge? Because this is knowledge now. Who creates knowledge? Who controls knowledge? And who benefits from knowledge? Before I continue, remember that UNESCO have emphasized mother tongue education, and they say that it improves comprehension, critical thinking, and long-term academic success. Any kid who learns an African language, apart from the school content, will be faster. It will be better for that kid who already has an African languages to learn any other language because there's already a basis for the learning of a new language. You cannot learn a new language if you don't have another language to form the basis of your language learning. So, let me say this, can Africa really industrialize or be innovators or even inventors using foreign languages? The answer is no. You can see, we may be even be, right now we are counted as third world, and one of the reasons is because we are not using our African languages. Now let's look at the science of learning in one's mother tongue. Students learn best in the language that they think in. Remember, students think, we think, usually when we think, anybody, we think in our first language. Remember that. We are Africans, so we always think our African languages. We dream in our African languages. When we are at home, we speak our African languages. Then when we come to STEM, when we go to school, this is the knowledge for industrialization. This is the knowledge for development. This is the knowledge for innovations, for inventions. And this whole knowledge, remember, when the kids go to school, it's taught in a foreign language. It's taught in English, it's taught in French. So you can see already we are creating a gap between the kid and that knowledge. There's already a wall there. Because now the kid learn this foreign language first. And by the time now he becomes a master of the foreign language, already he has passed the age of thinking and inventing. So, what happens now in our current situation? When the kids go to school to learn this knowledge in the foreign languages, what happens? They just memorize formulas without understanding them. What they're taught in school, if maths comes and say x over y is equal to z. So they just memorize that formula, but they don't understand the concept. How did that formula came into being? Then there's no creativity. There's no creativity, and then there's even fear of maths. You can hear kids saying, oh, maths or science is hard. The reason is because they are learning it in a language that already it's not their basic, it's not their first language. And then so many learners who could have been very strong in the sciences or STEM subject become weak because of that wall already you have built of the language wall. So this one is not, remember when the kids now become weak in science, become weak in math or engineering, we say they are weak, they are not clever. But remember, we have already created a linguistic barrier. So it's the linguistic barrier. It's not the intelligence of the kid. The kid is very intelligent, but we've already created a linguistic barrier between the kid and the STEM knowledge. So you can remember this. A learner, students who understand, for example, who understand Kiswahili, who understand Yoruba, who understand Zulu, and if these languages, if the STEM is taught using these languages, the concept will become very clear for the kid. Questions will become very easier for the kid to ask or answer. The innovation become very clear. Remember this, countries that teach foundational education in local languages consistently outperform those that rely heavily on foreign languages. This is a proven fact. Look at China, for example. It's now a first world, it's a superpower. What do they teach? Which language do they teach STEM to their kids? They don't use English. I'm just giving an example of Kenya. Eunice can relate to this. Your Thika superhighway units, when it's being built, who built that? Who contracted them? The Chinese. And when they came, were they speaking English? Let's just be open. Were they speaking English? No, they are not speaking English. Now, because they are not speaking English, do you think they didn't have the knowledge? They didn't have the knowledge to build the road? No, had the knowledge. They built the Thika superhighway. I'm talking about the road superhighway in Kenya. Eunice and the other Kenyans can relate to this. So, then number two, let's look at the case of Tanzania, where they use Kiswahili, the national in the national education and governance. When you look at that country, they have high national cohesion. They are very much united. And then they have very strong literacy development and widespread public participation in civic process. Although there are challenges in the higher education levels, Tanzania has demonstrated that African languages can handle administration, law, and academic instruction. Now, innovations begin with problem identification. And then, remember this, people will identify problems, they'll identify them best in their language that they live and experience with. If you speak Kiswahili, it's easier for you to identify a problem in Swahili, not in French or English or Spanish. So when we use foreign languages in innovation, one, rural inventors are excluded, indigenous knowledge is ignored, solutions become imported rather than homegrown. So we end up becoming consumers of STEM, of innovation from other countries and invent. Now look at the history of Africa right now. Very few inventors. But a long time ago, when Africa was Africa, we had a lot of inventions. For example, the paper from Egypt, papyrus, the wheel, all those are African, although in history I know they have changed. Those are African inventions when we were a superpower. But when we were colonized, everything changed. When innovation is taught in African languages now, farmers can innovate irrigation tools. Remember, because knowledge has to reach all Africans in their first language. Mechanics will improve machinery. Local coders can design community-based applications. Students can connect traditional engineering methods with robotics if innovation is taught in African languages. Innovation ecosystems thrive well where ideas flow naturally. And ideas will flow naturally when we are using our first languages. Example, I'm giving you an example again. Look at Japan, look at China. They are the home of inventors, the home of inventions. Why? They are using their first language. They industrialized using their own languages. They have not borrowed any. So language builds technological confidence. Now let's look at scientific knowledge where the books have been written. Most African scientific research are published in English, French, or Portuguese. This creates language barrier. Communities are affected by research because one, they cannot read that knowledge, they cannot critique it, they cannot apply it. So this one disconnects and there's very slow development. Just imagine if agricultural research were published in Hausa, in in Amharic, Swahili. Farmers could apply those findings directly policy discussions could widen, and innovation futures would accelerate. Knowledge should not be locked in linguistic vaults. Knowledge should be written in our African languages for our kids to learn it the earlier. In Swahili, we say, samaki mkunje angali mbichi. Fold the fish while it's still fresh, because when it dries up, it will be hard. So the kids can learn this STEM concept, and we will have a new generation of inventors and innovators when we start at those concepts in our African languages. There are those who will say that, oh, African languages lack scientific vocabulary. But vocabulary, let me give you the example of English. Do you know that all, and I'm repeating again, all the scientific words in English, all of them have been borrowed. Are you aware of that? They have been borrowed from any word that you hear in English that starts with al, alkaline, alchemist, all those words are Arabic. And then there are those words like photosynthesis. All those words have been borrowed from Portuguese. So you can imagine if English, remember when English has not didn't become a superpower, the speakers of English were being called barbarians. If you look at movies like The Barbarian, those were the first English speakers, and the other speakers are calling them barbarians because they couldn't hear what they are talking. So when they talk, they just hear bar, and that's what they call barbarians. But what happened to English? They borrowed all this scientific knowledge. So in Swahili or any African language, we can borrow the words. We can borrow photosynthesis, biotechnology, nanotechnology. All these words are not originally English. And we can also coin same words in our African languages. And then let's look at the industrial development and workforce productivity. Industrial development depends on skilled technicians, clear safety communication, technical manuals, vocational training. If all these are in the foreign languages, there'll be a lot of errors, accidents increases, production declines. But you can imagine if all this knowledge is taught in our African language, local languages, skill transfer becomes easy, retention increases, entrepreneurship expands. You look at language dependence on foreign languages, in coding, in engineering, artificial intelligence, AI, renewable energy. This one makes us very dependent. We have like a dependency. We cannot work without having a linguistic understanding of the foreign languages. So we cannot grow. Africa cannot fully own technology if it does not fully express technology in its own languages. We'll just stay behind, following others, becoming a tail for others who are the heads. So languages exclusion increases inequality, rural backgrounds. So students who come from rural backgrounds, low-income homes, and elite schools are affected when education is delivered in foreign languages. Because for them, a student coming from rural environment has a good understanding of his first language. So if you can imagine if that kid is taught STEM. So if we use African languages to teach STEM, will decrease, dropout rates will reduce, it will increase girls' participation, encourages community-based innovation, and bridges urban-rural gaps. So what do we do? Recommendations. We develop scientific glossaries in major African languages. So we have vocabulary, scientific vocabulary in all our African languages. We produce STEM textbooks in our African languages. We should not rely on English, French, and other foreign textbooks. We should have a Luo textbook, a Kikuyu textbook teaching maths, Akamba, Amharic, Zulu. Then we should also encourage bilingual STEM education, where we can combine a foreign language with an African language. Then we also support African language research journals. We integrate local languages in vocational training. When you are training these technicians, let's use also African languages because they understand better. And then we also digitize African languages for AI and software development. Right now, it's only Kiswahili, and still, Swahili has not been well developed in AI like the other languages. You can go to AI applications, and all the AI are foreign invented. We don't have our own AI. The reason is our kids are not understanding STEM as early as possible so that they can become inventors. So governments, universities, media platforms must collaborate. Educational content creators, including platforms like Babusa TV, can introduce science concepts in African languages. Or Babusa TV, we use Kiswahili. So we can start introducing concepts using Kiswahili. We inspire young inventors. We normalize technical discussion, scientific discussion in our local languages. We can discuss Pythagoras theorem in Kikuyu. Why don't we discuss Pythagoras theory in Kikuyu, in Luo, in Zulu? Why do we have to discuss it in English? Why? So let's encourage this knowledge transfer in our African languages. Language is not merely a communication tool. It's identity, access to power and knowledge, its ownership, its innovation. And Africa cannot be built. Industrial evolutions in Africa cannot be built only with machines. It will be built with minds. And minds will think best in the original, the languages of their soul. The language of your soul is your first language. Okay. And you are an African, so it means the language of your soul is the African language. So if Africa wants to lead in science, to lead in industrial transformation, to lead in technological independence, we have to elevate our African languages from cultural symbols. When I'm talking about culture, that's when you remember, we have Africa, we have access. No. We should promote our languages from that level to become the engines of innovation. Let's promote them now. Let's take them up. And that's my talk. And thank you very much again. And thank you for the invitation for me to speak this forum.
Shukran sana, Dr. Babusa. It's always a pleasure listening to you. Your passion for African languages, your passion for Kiswahili is unmatched. You have not told us that you also wrote a series of books, of science books in Kiswahili. They are called the Mapumba series, and I have 5 of them in my library. So one thing that I'm taking away from this discussion was that Africa is built by minds, and minds that think in local African languages. Thank you very much, Daktari, and thank you also for honoring this invitation. So does anybody have a question for Dr. Babusa? Because I'm sure he wants to leave. Any question for Dr. Babusa? You can put it on the chat box. We will send him by WhatsApp and he can rejoin to answer them if you have a question for Dr. Babusa. So at this juncture, I would like to call our next speaker. Our next speaker is really interesting. Comrade, please forgive me if I murder your name. Our next speaker is Lumkisile Bakubaku from South Africa. He is a Pan-African leadership educator. He is a male identity architect and coach. He'll tell you what that means. He is a champion of African Renaissance, founder of the Kwantu Sovereign Dominion, which is a masculine space. Other than the feminist space that we have, men have started creating masculine spaces. So I hope he'll tell us about that as well. But he's going to talk to us about African languages, about his experience with African languages, and how we can elevate African languages to work for us as tools of development, as tools of empowerment, as tools of reparative justice. You're welcome, comrade. Please speak to us.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Just gonna start by greeting everyone in my home language. It's Xhosa. I will start by saying Botani Molweni. Botani is the old language that was used when we were greeting people, but then we adapted as the times changed. We moved to Molweni. So the older folks would tell you Botani. We never greet in a singular form in the Xhosa language. Even if you are just one person, we will greet you as if we greet you with all the people that are with you. If you are African, you would understand what I'm saying. So there are a few things that I have to clear from my introduction. The first one is what is my work. So the first part is we're trying to redress how the society has told the men, especially the Black men, on how to behave. So what we do, we are very intentional on the work that we do to ensure that we can redress that and we can be able to define ourselves as men before we are defined outside the spaces we are operating from. Today, we are discussing African languages. It's a very touchy topic to discuss, especially in the Southern space, where we are still fighting for our identity. Whenever you go into the African spaces and you're coming from South Africa specifically, which is where I come from, you get the looks, based on the fact that we still have a lot of Eurocentric influence. So because of that, this is a very important topic. Now, the first thing I would like to discuss, the issues we are experiencing when it comes to African language, especially in South Africa. We have 12 official languages that we speak. The 12th one is sign language. We have 2 languages that are coming from the colonizer, and then we have 9 other languages that we are using. What's fortunate about South Africans is that most of us, we can speak at least more than 2 of the home languages, which is a win for us. But there's always missed opportunities, especially when it comes to changing the mindset of our people. And the first opportunity we miss is when it comes to just simple communication. I don't know if you've noticed, it also happens within the Africans Rising spaces, where someone has to, you can see the person has a thought, but they still have to translate what they are about to say. I've seen with the people that come from the language, from the countries that speak French, you would see a person is thinking of a thought in their home language. And then they would have to translate to French. And then after that, they would have to translate to English. This usually slows communication. By the time the person gets to French, in most cases, their message has been diluted. It's no longer the same message they had when they were thinking in their home language, because the message loses the essence as the person keeps on interpreting. So that's the issue we are sitting with in most cases as Africans. Another issue that we are having when it comes to the economic emancipation spaces, we have a problem. The number one problem is that we have economic frameworks that are coming from other languages, and then we try to apply them in the African spaces. And in most cases, the people we are applying these for, they are not understood, they don't understand what exactly are we saying. Another issue that we have is within the judicial space. In South Africa, for example, Latin is very much ingrained into the judicial system. You would hear our African lawyers in South Africa, I don't know if it happens as much in other countries, but I would believe it's the same. you would hear a person translating or talking in Latin, whereas they are talking to a client that is Xhosa or Zulu or Tswana. And they would be talking about things like, there's a common saying that was problematic, I think about 2 years ago, when it comes to one big case that we have, which was quid pro quo. You know, that is a very serious term. And if you are to tell me that I come to you seeking legal advice and then you would hit me with Latin terms, I would not understand if we are winning the case or we are losing the case. And that pours into the spaces of policy making. In most cases, we have issues when it comes to just creating policies, because the people we are creating policies for, they don't even understand the language we bring these policies in. In most cases, we have issues where even the way we translate some of these policies, we use words that are still Englified. For example, we just slap an I in front of an English word, and then we say that is translated. You know, the word like constitution, you would hear someone saying e-constitution, you know, and then that you would think a person would understand that. You know, you would have people saying, there's a lot of words that we slap a few words in front and then we preface that as if it has been translated enough. So we end up losing the masses when it comes to just these three phases. For example, in South Africa right now, in the townships and the villages, in the issues of the economic emancipation, we have people that used to, when they were moved away from certain spaces and when they were placed in their homesteads out there in the world, they were given what was called a, and you would hear people being very proud that I have a PTO for my land. None of these people have an understanding that they have a permission to occupy land, permission to occupy. In their own land, they are given permission by someone they don't know to occupy land that they don't know belongs to whom. We have a lot of these that are happening here in South Africa. And this happens a lot because these people don't understand the difference between a PTO and a title deed. And none of the policymakers or the economists or the judicial bodies are going out there to educate our people in their home languages. Because if we were to do that, that's the only way our people would gain power. Then we would go to another space, the last space that I would discuss, which is the political space. In South Africa, we had 18% of the voters coming out in the last election. 18% of the youth came out, just 18%, and we expect change. Now, in most cases, these people would, the number that we are missing here is due to the fact that they are thinking, in most cases, it's because they are no longer interested because nothing is changing. But in most cases, the political parties that we have, they are not translating the political knowledge. They are not translating the political education. In most cases, if you were to ask a normal African youth or a normal African young child, if you were to ask them the political terms that we use, you know, you would say, I'm leftist, you would say I'm right wing, you would hear people saying I'm Leninist, you would hear people saying I'm Marxist. Our youth usually don't understand those terms because those terms are usually not translated. Now, when we talk about this, if everything was to be translated to African languages, everything that I've touched on when it comes to these, I believe we would have a more powerful youth, we would have a more powerful Africa. I believe we would have a very efficient way of changing the whole continent and ensuring that we reach the goals of what we are trying to reach, which is what we call African unity at all times. I would like to thank you for this opportunity to have this chat with you. I thank you for this opportunity and the invitation. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Comrade, for that elaborate presentation. You have given us a context of the South. Believe you me, when you were speaking, I almost thought you were speaking about Kenya, and I've seen Anne commenting on the chat box that our learned friends will kill us. They have very, very many vocabularies, and they are always either in French or in Latin or in wherever language that they have to show that they went to school, that they are learned, of course. Yeah. So at this juncture, I would like to call Kim. Kim, do you still have something to present before I open this for plenary? Kim?
Not at all. I think the conversation has been
Okay.
so full to
I have also seen a very good comrade of mine who I would want to talk to us, to greet us and talk to us a little bit. Madam Mildred Ngesa. Because you're on this space, it would be very unfair if we don't get a bit of your wisdom. Please talk to us. Tell us something.
I think Mildred Ngesa was here, but I'm not sure I can see her anymore. I don't seem to see her.
Okay. It would have been a privilege to just get a bit of her wisdom in
Kim is
this.
here.
This
Kim is
space.
here, though. Kim is here.
Okay. She's here.
Yeah. She's on mute.
Mildred, please.
Kim.
Wachinwa gimoro.
You're asking for Kim.
If she shows up again, she will
Yes,
talk to us.
I'm here, Dada, but I thought you were referring to an elder mama
Yes,
wisdom around language preservation.
yeah. No, she'll talk to us when if she joins back. But then at this point, I would like to open this for plenary discussions. So if you have anything to tell us about what we're talking about today, African languages, please, this is the time to talk to us. If you have a question to any of our speakers today, this is the time to ask these questions. If you have any way forward you'd want to talk to us about, this is the time to talk to us about this. So just put your hand up and I'll see you.
I did want to say something, Eunice. I'm sorry to be the first person to start speaking. It's because I saw Kim's picture and I just sent her a voice note. I'm sure she hasn't quite listened to it. So Kim did start by saying something about, and this is exactly how she said it. To this show, we didn't stop being African. We brought Africa with us. And for me, I thought when she was saying that for some weird reason today, I don't know what happened to my body. Like I was just I had goosebumps, and I thought that was really powerful because it shows, or rather, it demonstrates the commitment that our siblings still have when it comes to, not forgetting their identity. But I think the reason why I had goosebumps, and I know we had a chat this afternoon, was because the work of reparation is very fresh and the continuous work that I've been trying to research on. And so it was a reminder of that very reality that is before my eyes. And I didn't realize that I know it's very deep, but like at a personal level that it gets to you to that level. I thought that was really, really powerful. And I kept thinking about how many more people don't we know. Like across the week, over the week, I saw a random post. I don't know whether it's, the way you meet a random post and you don't know who posted it, but it asked one significant question that where are our forefathers who were taken by the Arabs because we don't see them? And so when Kim said this, I don't know, it sparked that thing in me of, wow, like this thing is really here. You know what I'm saying? So thank you so much, Dada, for saying that. I thought that was really powerful, and thank you for reminding us. And thank you for, like waking the rest of us in Africa up to be with you in this fight.
Asante sana.
Thank you very much, Anne. Anybody else who wants to say something? Anyone else who wants to say something? Oh, eventually you're all going to say something. Okay. Earlier today, I was talking to a comrade Nicodemus, I think he's either from Botswana or Namibia. And he was talking to me about the Nama languages and how endangered those languages are. I know there are a number of endangered languages in the continent, and of course, amongst Africans in the diaspora. Which are some of these languages, and how do we ensure that these languages do not disappear? Because that was the initial plan of the invaders. But how do we ensure that we keep these languages, that these languages do not disappear from our face? Which are some of these languages?
So, Dada Eunice, I'm not sure who that question is addressed to, but as the executive director of the Teaching Artists Institute, I would love to address it. Some of the work that is being done across our organization, we're in 9 countries, 7 of which are on the continent. And what we're finding is that the inaccessibility of mother tongues and African languages that we find in the diaspora that we're attempting to overcome is also some of the same problems that are on the ground in the regions where we're working with the youth of the Teaching Artists Institute. And so we found that art is an incredible way to retain new language. So new language acquisition is also a gift through technology. And so this coming summer, through our AS for Africa program, we're including language acquisition through video game design. And so we have found that young people are digesting video games at high rates. I mean, everything from, my God, they just know how to use technology in ways that I feel like I'm the oldest young person in every room. All the elders don't see me as elders or even olders, but I'm definitely older than all of my young people peers. And they digest technology in ways that I've never seen before. I remember my video game was Sega and Nintendo with cartridges that you had to blow out to make it work. And these young people, even at 2 and 3 years old, they're using games to learn. And so finding ways to include gaming into language acquisition is an approach that we're using as an organization. And whether you have access to technology or not, learning by playing is just foundational. And so I just wanted to offer that to the discussion.
Thank you very much, Kim. In Africa, we all learn by playing. We all learn by dancing. We all learn by reciting. And that's a really interesting concept that would want to interact with. Anybody else who wants to say anything?
Yeah, Crispin Hans has been up for a while, so I'll send him a microphone.
Okay.
Yes, yeah. Oh, voilà. Merci beaucoup. Asante sana dada Ojambo, asante kuote kuone unayotoa. Let me go again in French. So, je pense que les langues, bien sûr, la thématique liée par rapport à nos langues, c'est une thématique très, très capitale. Vous savez, nos langues africaines réservent nos forces, et, nous identifient à nous-mêmes, identifient nos forces, ils identifient ce que nous sommes capables de faire à nous-mêmes. Et c'est très, très important, je crois sincèrement, pour que cela soit valorisé. Bien que, avec les néocolonialismes qui ont essayé un peu de nous voir comment nous effacer quand même, qu'à nous-mêmes, nous ne puissions pas s'exprimer à nos propres langues en essayant un peu de venir avec leur langue pour instaurer leur langue et nous diviser entre nous. Ça, c'est un défi majeur, mais que peut-être à travers ce que nous faisons déjà, à travers des initiatives qui sont déjà prises en cours, cela va ressusciter quand même cette révolte culturelle, cette révolte de la langue, afin que nous puissions revenir à nos langues maternelles, parce que c'est une force. Vous savez très bien que lors du colonialisme, de l'histoire, du partage de l'Afrique, tout ce que les colons ont venu quand même coloniser dans nos pays, ils ont aussi quand même nous divisé, essayé un peu de nous diviser entre nous, pourvu que nous n'essayons pas d'exprimer notre langue à grande voix. Et à travers des écoles, ils ont instauré des écoles, ils ont instauré des campus d'enseignement, là où ils ont imposé quand même leur système, leur langue coloniale, par exemple l'anglais, le français, et que cela, c'était leur moyen quand même de voir quand même, de nous empêcher à nous, de ne puissions pas quand même nous exprimer longuement et nous garder nos sens culturels et qui puissent sincèrement arrêter, que nous contrôler et qui nous contrôlent totalement nos peuples africains. Voilà, et ça c'est déjà un gap. Je crois très bien que les campagnes doivent beaucoup plus s'accentuer, beaucoup plus pour la valorisation de culture, nos langues, au milieu, sincèrement, au milieu scolaire, premièrement dans les écoles. Ce sont des lieux beaucoup plus capitales, là où les langues sont valorisées, des centres d'éducation, comme Dadaki m'avait dit. Au-delà des centres d'éducation, il y a aussi des programmes peut-être de mentorat, là où on valorise quand même nos langues africaines, ce que nous parlons directement. Et cela quand même aura donné quand même un autre sens par rapport à notre valeur, nous faire revoir encore nos pouvoirs, ce que nous avons à nous, comment est-ce que nous pouvons nous exprimer librement et nous entendre facilement. Parce que on sait très bien qu'il y a beaucoup de dialectes, par exemple en RDC. Nous avons 4 langues nationales et une langue internationale officielle, dont le français. Et des autres 4 langues, ce sont les langues nationales, les Chiluba, les Chikongo, les Kiswahili et une partie de Lingala. Vous voyez tout ça. Et le peuple entre eux se sent fier. Nous, Congolais, nous sentons beaucoup plus fiers quand nous nous exprimons dans nos langues nationales. Par exemple, un Congolais de l'Est se sent fier quand il s'exprime en Kiswahili. Et il est très bien entendu, il s'exprime dans ses Kiswahili, dans ses langues locales et avec son dialecte, parce qu'il y a beaucoup plus de tribus en RDC. Et ces tribus-là se valorisent entre eux à travers leur même culture. Il y a des endroits là où vous pouvez traverser, vous pouvez aller dans des provinces ou d'autres milliers. On ne parle que leur langue locale. Ils ne savent pas des langues coloniales, ils ne savent pas l'anglais, ils ne savent pas le français. C'est uniquement leur langue locale. Et les messages passent correctement et ça passe très bien. Vous êtes là, vous vous sentez fier quand vous êtes dans ces endroits-là, dans ces provinces-là, et que vous voyez quand même cette expression de ces langues culturelles. Vous voyez un peu. Voilà, j'aimerais aussi, c'est dans ce sens que j'aimerais aussi voir quand même, nous interpeller, voir comment est-ce que nous pouvons continuer toujours à valoriser nos langues. Premièrement, j'ai donné une recommandation à travers des écoles, parce que les écoles sont les centres primordiaux d'éducation, là où la langue est priorisée. Si on instaure des systèmes d'éducation dans nos langues locales, à travers toute l'Afrique, je crois très bien que cela aura donné quand même aussi une force et renaître quand même nos valeurs. Merci.
Asante sana Crispin for that contribution. Indeed, Batoto wa Kongo wanapenda lugha za Kiafrika. I see the passion with which they speak Kiswahili and of course how they speak Lingala. I love Lingala. I would love to learn it so that I can also speak with it, talk to it. I've seen in the chat box, there's a question on how do we handle dialect differences? There's a whole debate about dialects, the origin of dialects, why they are called dialects, and so on. And I've just remembered yesterday I was teaching about dialects and pidgins of Kiswahili. What you'd see is that most of what we call dialects were independent African languages. But when Africa was invaded, either by Arabs or by Europeans, they decided to classify our languages according to how they had or what they thought was close to each other. So they decided to classify these languages into what we call language groups. If you come to Kenya, you'll find a community called Luya. If you come to the coast, we have this Swahili community. If you go to where I stay, there's Mijikenda. But apparently these were independent communities, only that their languages were close to each other. So the colonialists decided to clump them together as a language group. And you'll find that those language groups' names are not very old. I'm also picking this from Crispin, where we are talking about Africa, the African race being the strongest on earth. There was many attempts that you know to erase Africa, to erase Africans, to erase our cultures, to erase our languages. But imagine we survived all this. To date, we still have languages, we still have cultural practices, we still have African spirituality after all that has gone on. So my thoughts is that we are actually the strongest race on earth. And if only we were confident about who we are, if only we were conscious about Africanism and the power that we hold, Africa would go far, and no other race, no other continent on earth would match the development prowess of Africa. Anybody else who wants to say something? Anybody who wants to say something? I see another, is it a question or a comment on the chat? Oh, Charles. Thank you very much, Jadot. Charles is saying, going forward as elders, imagine Charles, you've become an elder so soon. Going forward as elders, we must continue to narrate, to sing, to bless the younger ones in indigenous tongues, ensuring continuity. African government must recognize African languages as official, not secondary, using them to shape law, to shape education and public life. Our languages are living libraries. Proverbs, riddles, and chants are historical records of migration, struggles, and triumphs. Speaking our languages is itself a historical act of resistance against erasure. 111, gain. Indeed, Charles, 111, gain. Anybody who wants to react to what Charles has said or wants to add something to what Charles has said? Nobody wants to say anything. Okay. Thank you very much, Kim, for coming. I see Kim has said she wants to go. Thank you very much for coming. Anybody else who feels if they don't speak, they'll be visited by ancestors tonight before I close this window? Okay, let's move to way forward. Remember, our rallying call was, let's speak them. Let's teach them. Let's preserve them. So how do we do this? How do we ensure that we are speaking our African languages, that we are teaching our African languages, and we are preserving our African languages? You can say in the chat box, or you can unmute yourself. Please don't leave this space without saying anything. Yes, Joan, we should have these conversations more, and we have such conversations every month. Please join us. I saw Kimani had posted how to join Africans Rising. And when you join Africans Rising, please also choose, we have a working group on reparations where we talk about these issues more oftenly. So every month we have these conversations about something. Today we are talking about language. Next month we'll be observing the International Day of Remembrance of Victims of Slave Trade, We'll be talking about slave trade and how it has shaped our lives as Africans and so on. So just please join us, join the movement, join the reparations working group, and let's keep these conversations alive. These conversations should move from virtual spaces. They should move from conferences to our mango tree, to our shades, to our chamas. Chamas are these women group meetings. They should move to our bars where we are having one for the road. And let's just speak about Africa, because the more we keep this conversation silent, the more injustices are thriving. Nobody wants to say anything else. I think we have had a rich discussion. The presenters were awesome. They carried messages from their motherlands. They taught us a thing or two. I hope you're leaving here having been enlightened, having learned one or two. More importantly, I hope you're leaving here having known somebody else or a word in another language. We will have this conversation again soon. Be sure to look out for our posters on the Africans Rising page. Follow us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, follow us on LinkedIn, follow us on X. We always have conversations going there. This conversation was being my mother tongue superiority has shown up. Okay, we were streaming this conversation live on Facebook. You can go there and listen to it once again. You can share it with your networks. We will be doing a report and sharing this report. Soon we share all our reports. And of course, we'll also be doing a blog. I've seen Annette here, which we'll be sharing with you, and you're free to share this with your networks. I would like to end there. And if you are still in the call, could you give us your... Anne, if you're still on the call, please give us your closing remarks. Sorry. Oh my God, I was talking to myself all this while. I was saying, on behalf of Anne, who has disappeared, and on behalf of Africans Rising, I would like to thank all of you for finding time off your schedules to be part of these important discussions. I'm really grateful to our speakers, Dr. Hamisi Babusa, Dada Kim Paul, Comrade Lumkisile, for showing up and talking to us about African languages, for sharing your wisdom with us. Until next time, it's bye-bye from Africans Rising. Thank you very much.